Once in a while, a video game comes along that doesn't just entertain, it lingers. It sticks with you. It leaves a mark. Spec Ops The Line is one of those games. A tactical third-person shooter that looked like just another military shooter in a sea of war games, until it pulled the rug out from under us. Spec Ops The Line isn't just emotionally unforgettable, it's also physically gone. Delisted from every major digital storefront without warning. You can't buy it anymore, and somehow that makes its message hit even harder. Spec Ops The Line quietly disappeared on January 29th of 2024, no heads up, no context. Eventually, 2K broke the silence with a brief statement due to expired partnership licenses, stating Spec Ops The Line will no longer be available on online storefronts, as several partnership licenses related to the game are expiring. Players who have purchased the game can still download and play the game uninterrupted. 2K would like to thank our community of players who have supported the game, and we look forward to bringing you more offerings from our label throughout this year and beyond. They didn't go into specific detail about what licenses are expiring, but the most likely culprit is the music. Licensed music plays a big role in the game's atmosphere, and now it's also the reason you can't legally purchase it. Now, there is a free download you can get on the Internet Archive. I personally bought it on GOG before it got delisted, and I'm very happy I did because this game, in my opinion, is a true classical masterpiece that unfortunately you can no longer buy. Let's start with what makes this game unforgettable: the story. You play as Captain Martin Walker, a Delta Force operative leading a recon team into a sandstorm-devastated Dubai. Your mission is to locate survivors and investigate a rogue transmission from Colonel Conrad, a decorated officer who went silent after being sent to assist with the evacuation. From the first moment, Dubai feels off. Towering skyscrapers half swallowed by dunes, streets littered with bodies and abandoned gear. The deeper you go, the more surreal and terrifying the mission becomes. What begins as a search and recover operation quickly descends into madness. Your squad mates, Adams and Lugo, start out confident and composed. But as the horrors pile up, betrayals, civilian casualties, moral ambiguity, they crack. Their dialogue shifts from professionalism to open hostility, grief, and psychological breakdown. Eventually, you come across one of the most deadly weapons, white phosphorus. This scene stands as one of the game's most gut-wrenching moments. It's horrifying, and you can't take it back. The game never lets you. It's not just shocking, it forces players to confront their complicity. The game doesn't let you choose a good path, it insists you look at the consequences. Spec Ops constantly plays with perception. Walker's narration becomes unreliable, flashbacks and hallucinations blur reality. Conrad, or rather the idea of Conrad, is as much a metaphor as he is a man, a twisted homage to Colonel Kurtz from Apocalypse Now. Spec Ops doesn't just borrow from those influences, it remixes them into something uniquely interactive and disturbing. The storytelling is layered with symbolism and psychological themes. As Walker pushes forward, his grip on reality starts to fray. Players begin to question what's real and what's imagined, mirroring Walker's descent into guilt and delusion. Every scene is crafted to unsettle and provoke, often reflecting the distorted lens of trauma. In the game's finale, it doesn't offer easy answers. It presents multiple endings, but none of them feel victorious. They're all steeped in regret, in consequence. It's a conclusion that lingers long after the credits roll. Mechanically, Spec Ops The Line plays like a standard third-person military shooter. Sticky cover-based gunplay, squad commands, a variety of modern weapons, and fighting through waves of insurgents. The game plays similarly to titles like Gears of War, but manages to be worse when it comes to controls. The controls are pretty frustrating. For instance, when you switch shoulder view from right to left, you have to aim down sights. And when you're done aiming, the shoulder view resets, making you have to press the shoulder swap button all over again when aiming your weapon. This is an example of how some of the controls are clunky and is something you'll have to get used to. The sticky cover system is probably the most frustrating. I've died several times learning to traverse the terrain with cover, sprint, and mantle mechanics, but overall it doesn't feel fluid, at least on mouse and keyboard. Speaking of mouse and keyboard, the game's sensitivity is way too high. I personally play with 800 DPI, and I had to set this all the way down to the lowest setting. The brilliance isn't really in the gameplay mechanics, it's in how these familiar systems are subverted to serve the story. Combat starts out clean, tactically efficient, even satisfying, but as the narrative spirals into horror, so does the gameplay. Enemies become more desperate, the violence more visceral, your squad's barks go from sharp military jargon to angry broken screams. You can feel the psychological toll mounting. The environmental storytelling is just as clever. Dubai isn't just a backdrop, it's a decaying surreal wasteland that mirrors Walker's mental collapse. Sandstorms shift the battlefield, visibility drops, chaos reigns. There's even a mechanic where sand can be used as a weapon, shooting out windows or rooftops to bury enemies beneath dunes. The sand itself gives the game its choking, dreamlike atmosphere. But even this turns on you. Every tool, every cool moment is a setup for guilt later. It's a game that makes you question your own enjoyment. Every mechanic reflects the core theme. War is dehumanizing. You start to dread firefights, not relish them. There's no satisfaction in surviving, only the creeping sense that you're getting closer to something terrible. Spec Ops doesn't reward you, it implicates you. The game deliberately frustrates expectations. It's not about winning or achieving a power fantasy. It's about experiencing a fall, from soldier to something darker. Gameplay and narrative are fused in a way few shooters dare to attempt. In 2012, military shooters were everywhere. The modern warfare formula dominated. Call of Duty, Battlefield, Medal of Honor, they were all about spectacle, big set pieces, power fantasies, kill streaks. And while Spec Ops The Line marketed itself like this, complete with gruff soldiers and bombastic trailers, it was actually a Trojan horse. The game asked, why are we so eager to kill in video games? Why do we celebrate war? Why do we press forward, even when it feels wrong? And it didn't give you a morality system to hide behind. There was no Paragon or Renegade meter. No good choices, just action and consequence. Underneath the cover-based shooting and tactical commands was a brutal critique of war games and how they often glorify violence. Where other titles gave you kill streaks, Spec Ops gave you PTSD. It pushes the questions of why we play war games. What are we looking for? Thrills? Heroism? If you felt uncomfortable while playing Spec Ops, that wasn't a failure of design. That was the design. The developers at Jaeger weren't just making a shooter, they were making a statement, a deconstruction, and in doing so they created a rare thing in gaming, a title that respects your intelligence and challenges your perspective. This wasn't satire, it was reflection. It was about taking a long, hard look at a genre and asking whether the players should feel triumphant. It made you carry the weight of your actions. Spec Ops made you look at the blood on your hands, and then asked if you still felt like the good guy. Critically, the game was well received. Not glowing, but respected. Many reviewers were divided, praising the narrative while criticizing the standard gameplay. But over time, Spec Ops The Line gained a cult following. Its legacy grew. Players looked back and saw a title that dared to do something different. It showed that you could tell mature, difficult stories in video games, even with a mostly linear structure. The few choices it does give you aren't about winning, they're about reckoning with what you've done. And now it's gone from licensed music, delisted from Steam, PlayStation, Xbox, GOG, and every major storefront. Songs like The First Vietnamese War by the Black Angels weren't just cool songs. They were part of the message that added layers to the game, juxtaposing chaos with classic rock to hammer home the surreal horror. The music elevated the game's emotional impact and ultimately doomed its long-term availability. The game that questioned the ethics of war is now a casualty of the industry's own fragility. And that's the bitter irony. A game built to critique the industry becomes a victim of that industry structure. Digital impermanence, corporate silence, cultural amnesia. So why should we still talk about Spec Ops The Line? Because it proved that a shooter could be more than just action. It could be introspection. It could use the medium's interactivity to make us complicit in a story and then make us reckon with that. The tragedy of its delisting only makes the message more urgent. If games like this can vanish, what else are we at risk of losing? How do we preserve the art that challenges us? We have to archive. We have to talk. We have to remember. Because if these stories disappear, the soul of gaming disappears with them. Spec Ops The Line isn't perfect. Its gameplay can feel clunky, the pacing uneven. It didn't break sales records, but none of that dulls its impact. It remains a landmark in storytelling, an example of what games can be when they dare to ask hard questions. If you ever get the chance to play it through a physical copy or an archive, do it. Not for the shooting, not for the graphics, not for the spectacle, but for the questions it will leave with you. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing and leaving a like for more deep dives into the games that shape the medium, even the ones we've lost.